while ago, made a presentation. One of I just didn't drive in Texas. She was really tired. Definitely not. 16 months. Not incredible. Oh, all right. There's a page right there. You got okay, see ya. Come on, Miss Mary.
Oh, boy. You too, then. All right. Thank you for serving. I was just thinking of your wisdom in 2 years.
So I see. How have you been with your daughter?
Strong, everybody's strong. Yeah. So and things just, I'm busy. What about you? So you can
Hey, we have some peaches for you.
yeah,
When you
the host I would come out.
if you are that, then you can take it. Only.
I'll check it.
Hi, Adam.
Hi, how are you? Hi, Carol. Nice to see you. Hi, Mom. Okay. So there are more responsive areas at some point you're going to it's all your advocate. You're looking yes. Hey, Jesse's going to give you a signal when it's time for you. Huh? Stream. Oh, you're already streaming. I did see it too.
Yeah, good job. Good. You follow the directions. And now everybody on YouTube knows you follow the directions. Thank you.
Okay. Exactly. You're having a contest. Again, okay? I told you, Mom.
Apparently they're just using that little.
Good morning. You guys try that again? Good morning. So exciting. Well, good morning, Unitarian Universalist Church of Roanoke. The inimitable Jean Larson is going to share some announcements before we get started. Jean, it's real.
What a moment, huh? I keep giving people thumbs up. I don't have to do that now. Well, a special hello to the folks on YouTube. We're really glad that you were part of our community. Okay, my mask away. Oh, wow. Okay, YouTube. We're so glad you're here. I'm so glad all of you are here. I am a member of your board, and I am going to start with one announcement that goes right to the heart of our community. We need volunteers to help our children in RE. I think we really need volunteers. So please do get in touch with Jessie. Jessie, you want to raise your hand? Jessie will tell you what you need to know. It's not arduous. It's a good thing. It's actually fun. So please see Jessie. You can give even just a few hours. She's got a plan. Okay, now for the bad news. Despite the amazing efforts of the Gen Cam team and led by the equally amazing Walker Hartman, we're short. We didn't get enough pledges. Easy to understand. It's been a rough year. Some people can't give money, we know that. And many people have. But as of way back last Monday, we were running about $22,000 short for the coming year, which begins July 1. And that's with a budget that's been cut and cut again in some pretty painful ways. So the board members, we met Monday, we're doing a lot of thinking about how to handle this. What about this? What if we have to go forward with the deficit? And we're hoping that more pledges will come in, possibly even today. Okay, and then we'll be able to do a better job. We all want to express our thanks to our Vice President of Finance, Gary Mason, for doing a ton of work looking at possibilities, and again, the Gen Cam team. They did their part, now it's up to us. Good news. Great thanks to everyone who's an official UUCR member who took part in either the annual meeting and the online voting. Nobody voted by paper, although it was an option. We got enough votes to make the quorum, and I started to sleep at night. It was much happier. Yeah, so thanks. And more good news, everything passed. Okay, even my minutes from last year, as well as the proposed budget, which may have to be tweaked, and the changes to our bylaws. A lot of hard work behind that, thoughtful edits. And that means that Catherine Hoffman, I won't make everyone, but Catherine, you should wave. Some people, oh, Catherine Hoffman, all right. Is moving into the president-elect position this year as Erica Joyner ascends to the height of president. So there's Erica. So we got a power team right here, but we're not losing our excellent outgoing president, Dave Perry, because he's going to finish out the final year of Catherine's term as an ordinary member at large on the board and chair of personnel committee, which is a lot of work. So thanks to all three of those folks, and extra thanks to Dave for what he's done in the past year. In addition, Matt Livingston was elected to the board as member of our and Walker Hartman. I'm looking for you, Walker. No, maybe he's on YouTube. Walker Hartman is going to do a second year, so we'll get more work out of him. Good. And Lowell Inhorn will be serving for a second year on the endowment committee, which is so much fun that he is going to move into the chair position. Thank you. Okay, and finally, Allison Schilling and James Roser will join the nominating committee. So when you see them coming for you, give them a big smile. We're happy about all of this, and we really want to thank Lynn Yates, Heather Mason, and Judy Granger, because they did a lot of work in support of democracy. Okay, drum roll, the special collections results. You remember that West End Center and New Horizons Healthcare are being carried over from last year. There's a domino thing from spring of 2020. But the winners for the two remaining spots for our 4 special collections in 21-22 are the Roanoke branch of the NAACP and the Legal Aid Society of Roanoke Valley. Really great causes, as were all the rest. It was a squeaker, so let me tell you, next spring, if you want to throw your weight around, vote. Okay, finally, we're really grateful to the people who took on the brain-bending work of making it possible for us to start moving through a reasonable and joyous reopening process. More and more Americans are showing their commitment to the well-being of others, and we're grateful for that too. But our task force members, led by Catherine Hoffman, also Tim Andriano, Allison Schilling, and Chris Yates. We also, in addition, thank Jerry Trammell, Judy Granger, Jesse McKeon, Carrie Morgayowitz, Rev Walter, and the Connections team, because this did not happen easily. So finally, finally, our full return to that illusion that we call normal is going to be, in Rev Walter's words, slower than we want. But we are on our way, step by step, keeping in mind the prime directives, which are safety and inclusiveness. So remember the various announcements you've heard and will be reminded of if need be. At the end of the service, we got to move right out those doors. We don't want to linger in the building because of air exchange. Remember, observe the bathroom protocols for sanitation, key among them, 1 person at a time in the bathroom. Oh, ask permission before you hug. That's always a good idea. Because we have different comfort levels. And there was one other. Remember? She suggested something. I'm putting you on the spot.
We're not praying.
Oh, yeah. No singing, no out loud spitting. Be cool. Let our heart sing. Oh, and I haven't mentioned money for a few minutes. So it's my understanding that we are not passing the collections baskets. Oh, we are. And the good news is we are passing the collection baskets, and we thank our ushers, so Ann and Henry did. Okay, see you in the garden after this.
want to take me in for a minute. It has been many months since I've seen more than just these little boxes of this faith community. So good to be with you, even on a hot morning. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers, grandfathers, and would-be fathers. Let's take a moment to honor our ancestors, the fathers in our blue lineage, for we would not be here without them. Let's take a moment and honor our paternal ancestors. We bless them. This morning, we venture into the territory of thoughts and prayers. The words have been heard much too often of late in response to the spate of gun violence. May such thoughts prompt action, and may prayers be heard. The optimist in me wants to believe the age-old prayers of those who have wanted to honor the official ending of slavery in this country have been heard. Happy Juneteenth. Let's have the words of welcome. Or not. I have them. Words of welcome. Catch up with me if they appear behind me.
It's a slow fade.
It's a slow thing.
Good.
Someone said patience is a virtue. Whoever you are, whomever you love, however you express your identity, whatever your situation in life, whatever your experience of the holy, as you come seeking love, your presence here is a gift. Whether you are filled with sadness, overflowing with joy, needing to be alone with yourself, or eager to engage with others, all are welcome.
As we do at the beginning of every service, we ring the bell 7 times for the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism. Our chalice lighting words are from Christine Robinson. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
To heal and not to harm, to have and not to hinder, to bless and not to
The flower communion is a UU tradition practiced in virtually every UU congregation. It comes to us from a time long ago in a country far away. Norbert Chopek created the flower communion in Prague. His Unitarian congregation was diverse in beliefs, as is ours, so the traditional communion of bread and wine just wouldn't work for them. So Norbert turned to nature, and he asked that each of his congregants bring a flower, and that those flowers would be placed in a vase, and the collection of flowers represented the diversity of that church community. A wonderful symbol of diversity and unity. Today, we replicate the flower communion. We'll reflect on who we are as a community by commingling our flowers. Can you bring the flowers forward, please? I want to share with you words of the flower communion from our past Unitarian Universalist president, Reverend William Sinkford. He said, in the presence of these flowers, these representatives of creation's profound beauty, diverse and unique, but related and interdependent. These flowers which come to us as gifts from we know not where, and which we in turn choose to bring to our shared and common altar as gifts to one another. In their presence, we turn our thoughts to the mystery beyond mysteries and to the most sacred, which we never understand fully, but which we are granted revelatory glimpses of in each of these flowers, in each of your faces, and through relationships with neighbors in our faith community, near and far. May they remind us of grace we have known in days past, forgiveness we have been granted and provided, love unearned and shared, recovery begun and established, generosity unforeseen and most sacred. And may they inspire us now and in the days to come to seek, to notice, to embrace, and to recreate beauty, to give unto the world as exuberantly as these flowers.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jessie McEwen. I'm the Director of Lifespan Faith Development. I will introduce myself to you every single Sunday because we got folks watching online maybe for the first time. And my Texas accent is coming out. So you guys get to hear a little bit about my childhood in Texas this morning. I grew up in a very interesting way. I learned prayers with plants. And what I have here are some of those prayers. Now, these are all prayers that my mom made. They're called prayer ties. And what we do, and this is a Lakota, also known as the Sioux, a Lakota tradition. We take plant matter and wrap them up in these pieces of fabric. And as we're making these prayers, talking to the spirit of life, talking to Dekonshala, sometimes talking to ourselves, we make these prayers and we wrap them up. And then we put them in the trees for the wind to take up to Creator, to take out to all of you. Because when the wind blows through these prayers, you get those prayers too. And we do it all through plants. Now, some of the plants that we use are some you may have heard about before. This is some sage that was harvested by my little brother. He's 30, so it's not a little bundle because he's little. It's a little bundle because it's my brother. We also have Palo Santo. which is from a sacred tree that's sacred to the Dene people. Other people know them as the Navajo. And lots of cedar. And this cedar is actually from the mountains of Virginia. It's just been dried, so it's really small. We also use sweetgrass and tobacco and lavender. I love using lavender in my prayer ties. So just like all of us in this room, take a look around. Take a look around you. Is anyone looking in a mirror? Now, some people might be looking into something like a mirror, if you perhaps have a twin in the room. But everyone here is different. And you saw my mother's prayer ties wrapped up on that beautiful branch of sweet gum. And they're so nice and so organized. And these are mine. I make them big, I make them fluffy. But you know what? My prayers are big and my prayers are fluffy. And these take those things out to you. And sometimes I put intention in here for one of you in this room. Sometimes I hope that my intentions go out to the people in this room. And we do it through plants. And that's why the flower communion is so sacred to me, because I get to see the plants that you put all your spirit and energy and hard work into throughout the year. So thank you so much for bringing in these beautiful plants. And sometimes that spirit and energy is walking into the Kroger, and that's fine too. Thank you so much for bringing in your flowers. And I will have this stuff in the memorial garden if you want to take a closer look after the service. For the folks on YouTube, I'll post a picture on Facebook.
Thank you, Jesse. So our opening music is Enter Rejoice and Come In. And you may not be able to sing, but you can certainly clap if you would like to. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be our joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your heart, everyone. Today will be our joyful day. Don't be afraid of the pain. Don't be afraid of the pain. Today will be our joyful day.
Our reading this morning is titled The Outpouring of the Heart, an essay by Reverend Cheryl M. Walker. I grew up in a religious tradition in which prayers were to be said at least 5 times a day. In Islam, prayer is the first thing one does after waking and the last thing one does before retiring for the day. Praying 5 times a day reminds us that we are always in relationship to God. The prayers, the way of praying, and the times of prayer are all prescribed. Truthfully, I was not very good at prayer. Rarely did I ever pray all 5 required prayers in a day. And over time, I grew less and less comfortable with the words of the prayers. Like many young adults, I questioned the very existence of the God to whom I was supposed to pray, and soon found that I no longer prayed at all. I lost something that I wasn't sure I wanted or even needed. What I thought I lost were words and rituals and God. What I really lost was a deep and abiding relationship to the holy. Without that relationship, the world felt like a lonelier place, While I had good relationships with many people, these were no substitute for a relationship with that which is greater than the sum of our parts. I missed prayer, or rather, I missed being able to connect to that greater energy that I knew existed but could not name. Like Jacob, I wanted to know, what is your name? I knew what it was not, but I did not know what it was. I could call it God, but that word still kept me vacillating between the baggage of old images and having no belief in it at all. I needed to find a new way of seeing the holy, new words and new rituals in order to proclaim a new relationship with it. I needed a way to reclaim prayer. It took a good friend who is an avowed atheist to give prayer back to me when she said, I don't pray, but there are times when I sit and pour out what is in my heart to the universe. If there's a better definition of prayer than that, I am not sure what it is. Prayer is the pouring out of that which is in our heart. It does not matter if we believe in God with a big G or the holy with a big H. It does not matter to whom or what we address our prayers. The only thing that matters is that which is in our hearts that needs pouring out. Too often we get so stuck on the address that we're unable to get the message. Prayer need not have an addressee because it is the addresser that matters. For in prayer we know that ultimately we are the ones being changed. Whether we believe in a God who is transcendent, beyond us, or immanent, within us, or both, or neither, the only thing we can know for sure is that we are transformed in prayer. Prayer is the active process of becoming vulnerable so that we may be changed. In prayer, we shed the clothes of persona and stand naked before the holy, however we define it. In prayer, we do not seek to be our ideal selves, just who we are in that moment, with all of our beauties and all of our flaws on full display. There is a great exposure in being just who we are, but we can be vulnerable in prayer because we are unconcerned with what others may think of us. In prayer, we become detached from the expectations of others and ourselves, alone in the darkness and light of relationship with the sacred mystery of our existence. We can openly confess who we are and that which is in our hearts.
The church is a living organism. Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. The ushers will now come among you. You stay put, reach in your pockets, and the ushers will pass by you. As I was thinking about the flower communion that we celebrate today, I focused on the underlying concept that we as a faith community represent many different flowers that make the garden of who we are. Each different, each unique, each an integral part of a whole. Some flourish with more sunlight, some prefer more water, but none more important to the whole than the other. What a wonderful metaphor for wholeness. What a wonderful metaphor for community and for diversity. What a wonderful metaphor for Unitarian Universalism. For we who are the UU Church of Roanoke. As I thought about the service, my mind immediately went to the fact that we each have a great need for acceptance. Acceptance for who we are as we are. We all seek to be valued. I realized that as human beings, we are not inherently very good at this thing called acceptance. We judge, we evaluate, we discriminate, and we demean. All too often, without awareness, without intent, but often with impact nonetheless. We humans are not always so nice to each other. Sad to say, but I dare say it's true. Sometimes we can, simply put, be mean to each other, all within the context of being a faith community, with an avowed belief in inherent worth and dignity of every person. Folks, the stuff of being human just ain't easy. I thought about who we are as individuals, our diverse wants and needs, and that sociologically we have norms, rituals, and expectations of one another. And as a faith community, we must hold ourselves to a higher standard than one might expect in the workaday world or on a bus. And that it is easy to fail to leave the worldly norms outside when we gather in faith, when we cross the threshold of this church community. As an individual, I'm committed to the acceptance of diversity, committed to equitable treatment of one another. And as a so-called minority, I have a particular sensitivity to this thing called valuing and accepting. As a minister, that same sensitivity and awareness extends to my concern for who we are as we are with one another, as you use. And that as you use, we often don't sit comfortably with the concept of God, prayer, and religiosity. I suspect that doesn't come as a surprise to anybody. If it does, you can raise your hand. You know and I know that talk of God, prayers, and the numinous is sensitive territory among us. My mind and heart was having difficulty holding both the inclusive meaning of the flower community and our collective dis-ease with acceptance of each other's belief systems and how different belief systems are manifested. So, as different flowers represent who we are as a faith community, so too our different beliefs and relationships with God and prayer reflect who we are as a garden of Unitarian Universalists. Rather than directly address our different relationships with God, prayer, and the numinous, being a little bit shy here, I decided to enter into the territory by asking about our divergent relationships to prayer as an entry point. So earlier this week I sent out a request that said, I'm looking to gather some data regarding people's thoughts, beliefs, experience with prayer. Your name's not necessary. Here are some of the things I got back. Sometimes I say a prayer of thanks for the sun filtering through the trees, the sound and sight of birds and other small animals, and my ability to walk, bend, and dig in my garden. Another said, when I pray, it is usually for someone else, not for intercession, instead for the other person to have an open heart, to feel the love and strength available for them, whether from a life force or other people. I give it as a gift, not saying to someone, I'll pray for you. And then I don't differentiate between prayer and thoughts. I don't pray to a higher power. I don't believe prayer is answered in the sense of someone listening and responding. I don't believe in prayers of supplication and intercession. Another said, it focuses my body, heart, mind. It makes space for clarity. Mostly, such as, please let X not happen. Please do let so-and-so be well. Prayer for me is like an ace up my sleeve. I pull it out privately when there is a heartfelt concern with someone that might benefit from a little extra help. Someone said my experience with prayer is pretty limited because as an atheist, it isn't relevant to my life. Another said, I'm not a big fan of long spoken prayers. Quiet meditation or short spoken prayers just seem more in tune with you. To be honest, I have found prayers to be disappointing, mainly because I never felt I heard back or anyone was listening. In more recent years, I have used prayer more as a form of meditation or self-reflection. Someone else said, I don't believe God does magic tricks, miracles, or has a request line for answering prayers. Another wrote, the word prayer doesn't resonate with me. We hold people in the light. We try to do things to help them. I think of prayer as a word for those with a belief in God. I might be okay with the word prayer being used occasionally, but if I were regularly asked to pray in church as a non-Christian you, feels like it would be asking me to connect with a word that simply doesn't move me. I don't claim a hotline to God, but I do feel peace when coming into a state of prayer. Turn every worry into a prayer. Prayer is a way of centering, of calling on myself and the community for the strength, courage, and commitment to do what needs to be done in a way that is equitable and just for all. Someone else said, prayer is a psychological experience that takes place within the individual. There is no listening entity, God, other than one's own psyche, which can have transforming powers. But I don't think prayer affects anyone or anything else outside of the practitioner. Someone said, I do not pray. I do try to meditate and practice mindfulness. Now this one I think is deserving of some kind of a prize. Someone wrote, the outcome of a rain dance has lots to do with timing. I'm not going to say what kind of prize I'd like to give that person. Generally, the prayers I hear from Christian ministers I don't like. They seem to be addressed to a supreme white male being who is much disconnected from earth and certainly from my daily life. And lastly, when I meditate, I often feel a connection that is prayer-like. I want to thank you for your contributions and for sharing who you are and manifesting who we are as a diverse community. As you may have noted, few responses made explicit reference to God, and those that did often did so in reference to a rejection and a belief in God, or at least in an interventionist God. And I was pleased to see that. Many did not directly associate prayer with God. I say that because I believe a one-to-one correlation between God, especially the God of our youth, you know, the big daddy God, the prayer, the big daddy God, the God in the sky. That one-to-one connection between God and prayer is much too constraining and drives one in the direction of rejecting or dismissing the value, or at least the potential value, of prayer. As we heard this morning's reading, it does not matter if we believe in God with a big G or the holy with a big H. It does not matter to whom or what we address our prayers. The only thing that matters is that which is in our hearts that needs pouring out. Words from Reverend Cheryl M. Walker just so happens to have been, to continue to be my mentor. I've gleaned many words of wisdom from her and applied a few of them. Some of you have heard me say that I'm making plans to conduct a memorial service for the God we no longer believe in. I'm hoping to do it sometime this fall. I'm convinced that many of us live in the past, carrying hurts and disappointment in a relationship with God, with a God that's dead to us, a definition of God that no longer suits us, a definition of God that we've outgrown, just as we've outgrown a particular definition of Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. Both of whom we can still be in relationship with, Easter Bunny and Santa. But in the context of who we are as individuals in the here and now, it's not the same as when we were children. The thought came to me years ago, sitting in class on theology. It occurred to me that if we could bury an outgrown view of God, a dead relationship with God, that may open us to develop a different relationship with the concept of God. Note I say the concept of God. With the concept of the mystery, the numinous, and maybe even prayer as well. If we can mourn the death of the God we no longer believed in, I thought maybe we could be freed to allow the growth of a different relationship between self and a God with a small g, or a God with a big G. I've even suggested we call it Fred. So there's no confusion with our current definition and experience and the one that we buried. It might allow us to use to claim our faith as a religion. For the longest time, I could not pray because I no longer believed in the God of my youth, the God of the Baptist Church. It wasn't until I was able to develop a different relationship, a different definition of God, that I was able to come to a different relationship with the numinous, that I was able to pray again. And I'll admit, I still say a personal prayer to a God. God with a small g, the God of my own definition. It's a concept that represents the divine being. And I need to work at calling that Fred, so I don't get caught up in not being able to pray. Folks, I urge you to go forth this day in the fullness of who you are. Go forth grounded in the belief of your choosing, knowing that you're entitled to your beliefs, knowing that others are entitled to their beliefs, and that no two beliefs need to be the same, nor are they required to be correct or right or even suitable to anyone else. Go forth knowing that we are all connected to the web of our existence in the here and now, each with inherent worth and dignity, knowing there will be times we need to be reminded of our interconnectedness. Give me a moment to clear my throat so that I can tell you, please don't hesitate to remind one another of each other's inherent worth and dignity, for we're among friends. Maybe be wise enough to support one another, each on our own individual paths, knowing we are all in need of being valued. We are in need of being loved, knowing We are each on our own individual path, wherever it may lead. I ask that you please be gentle with yourselves. Find time to simply be with yourselves. And in so doing, you just might claim a friend or a soulmate. May you know peace. Blessings. Amen. And Ashe. We have lifelines.
It's so good to look at all your faces here today. It's so wonderful to be here. I'm Linda Wallace, and I'm on the Caring Committee. One of the things that we do is report the current concerns of the congregation in Lifelines. If you'd like to tell us about a concern or a milestone to be shared, please email a member of the committee or the church office at judygranger.uucr.com. Let us enter into a time of reverence together and into the space of love and hope. We bring these concerns. Nancy Valley is a member of our choir here at church, and she's had a knee replacement, and she's had heart failure and is back in the hospital in Louisville. And if you could just send her some healing thoughts and prayers, it'd be wonderful. As many of you know, my daughter Jessica is going through a really difficult time right now. And I would appreciate if she would too. She told me I could tell you all the prayers and thoughts and in your heart. And as we light the candles individually, this not everybody, but Reverend Walter and me, please send up and put her in the light of your heart. And I really appreciate it. For all these people and events in our lives that move us or take us into this time to be together in meditation, prayer, or reflection, Walter will come up and light one candle for the prayers outside of us that we spoke, and I will want to the unspoken prayers. God bless you all.
Join me in a moment of prayer. Holy, 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 ye of so many names and no names at all, be with us this morning. Help us to rest in the comfort of that which is holy, righteous, spirit-filled, and good. Help us to know that we do not need to be good, smart, or achieved in order to know the territory of that which is spirit-filled or sacred. May we find the gate to the territory of our everyday lives. May we be comforted and assured by our inherent goodness, even during those times when such awareness feels so very far away. We pray for those in need this day, for those who help to meet the needs of others. May both know peace. have announcements. Ushers, would you come forward, please? With many hands. And take our flowers back to their starting point, please.
And our closing music.
Today is Wild Mountain Time, sung by the Friskies. Oh, sorry.
I want to bless the flowers that are before you, each representing who we are as individuals, as a faith community, and as a denomination. May they bring a smile to our face and warmth to our hearts, as each of you do to one another. Amen. Thank you, thank you.
Our closing music today is Wild Mountain Time, and sung by the Friskies back in May, before we knew we would all be together again. And you may notice that we're not using our regular projector, and that's because we're not sure what's wrong with it. So I wanted to thank Aztec Rental for letting us not rent, but borrow this projector for today. And the sound will be coming out of the projector because we just couldn't make it work any other way. So if you're near the projector, you'll hear a lot of Friskies. And if you're far from the projector, you'll hear less Friskies.
my true love will not go. I will never find another where the wild mountain thyme cruise around the purple heather. With the gold as eagle, and we'll all go together to the wild mountain thyme, all around the moonlit heather. With the gold as eagle, with the gold as eagle.
And I should say, I think 2/4 of the Friskies are here today. Nancy and Catherine are both here. I don't know if Judy and Kylie are here, or as Patsy, as I call her, are here or not, but thank you.
The calendar drives many of our schedules. It's opening just as I am preparing a break, a well-deserved and wanted summer break. I'll be in the office for another week, I think 2 maybe, if I can remember my calendar. Please feel free to be in touch. Other than that, I will see you in mid to late August, and we'll turn the running of the pulpit and Sunday services over to a talented and experienced individual, Anna. I am a long time and increasingly aged gardener. I want you to know that I think you are just a special garden. And I'm excited to be with you and for us to jointly till the soil of who we are as a faith community, that we may bless. Go into your week in peace. Let me also remind you